always emerges greater and more unified. I'm guaranteeing that we're going to see the same outcome as we pass through this COVID-19 situation. As new guidance, required procedures, and protocols become available to us, it is the goal of Devine ISD to provide you with much information as possible and give you access as soon as it becomes available to us. We appreciate your patience as you've worked hard to bear with us, and we work hard to research questions to the many they research the answers to the many questions that you have regarding the impact the pandemic will have on our district and its students this year. Please keep in mind that guidance is continually changing from federal, state, and local authorities, and that any information that is released by the district at this time is subject to change. In an effort to address questions that everyone may have regarding COVID and the things that will specifically affect our district, we have created this live informational session. This session is designed to address any questions that you may have regarding students and our procedures. It is very important to note our school district is a governmental entity that is bound by state and federal statutes and different guidelines which change frequently as new scientific and disease data becomes available. Our district adopts operational procedures based on the direction and guidelines from our local health agency, the Texas Education Agency, and our national government agencies. The different topics that we plan to cover in this session are going to include safety measures and procedures that the district has implemented based on guidance from TEA and the CDC, general procedures for school operation, quarantine protocol based on CDC guidance, the explanation of learning platforms available to our students, and potential situational scenarios. This informational session will be followed by a question and answer period. Questions may be emailed in advance or emailed now to parentcovid19@devineisd.org. A recording of the session will also be made available to everyone, and the Q&A document will be provided via Google Drive and posted on the district website. Questions that cannot be answered during the session will be addressed as soon as possible via the question and answer document. And once more, we'd like to reiterate, as we receive updates from federal, state, and local authorities, the answers to the questions discussed in this meeting may change. In those cases, Devine ISD will update the posted FAQs, and we will note any changes and the date that those were made. We will also have a translation version of this in Spanish, thanks to Coach George Villa. We'll have this also posted on the website. Right now, I'd also like to take time to review the list of COVID-19 symptoms identified by the Center for Disease Control. These include the cough, a runny nose, shortness of breath or difficulty breathing, nausea or vomiting, feeling feverish, or of measured temperature greater or equal to 100.4 degrees. Also a loss of taste or smell, headache, sore throat, shaking or exaggerated shivering, significant muscle ache or pain, and diarrhea. The entire district is hard at work developing plans for the return of our students and teachers in August. Our staff and students' health and safety is always the priority of the district decisions. Your patience, flexibility, and commitment to serving the students of this great district are always appreciated, and we all strive to navigate the unprecedented challenges we are faced with at this time. District leadership strives to make the most informed decisions possible for our staff and students, and we appreciate the opportunity to be at your service anytime you need us. Recently, we have received a supply of PPE or personal protective equipment from the Texas Education Agency, and the district is always acquiring PPE from our vendors every day to ensure the safety and health of students and staff. There's a great list that we will have posted on the website that will go over some of the things that we've received from TEA, which include disposable masks, reusable masks, hand sanitizer, and face shields. I'm going to go over a couple of the pieces of school operation before we start answering any questions, and this may help to cover a great deal of the information that you may have or may want to send up that will come up in the Q&A. So first of all, we'll talk about instructional delivery methods. So we continue to monitor updated TEA guidance and amend our instructional plan accordingly. Based on current TEA guidelines, when school begins on August 24th, we will offer both in-person and remote instruction. These opportunities will be on campus so that every family can choose the instruction delivery method or model that serves them best. So we'll cover option one, the in-person learning option. Students will attend class daily on their campus. We will have an upcoming back-to-school plan that will spell out the guidelines, rules, and routines and procedures that would be put in place in order to comply with TEA and CDC guidelines. Some considerations of this will include reduced class sizes, a revised cafeteria plan, hallway and transportation routines, and additional cleaning protocols along with personal protective equipment. We plan to have sanitizer in each classroom, which will be available at the entrance, and students will be spaced as far apart as possible in each classroom given the size of the classroom dimensions. Parents, students, and staff entering any campus will be screened for COVID-19 symptoms, and individuals requiring quarantine will not be allowed on campus. Parents must ensure that they do not send a child to school or have them report to campus if the child has any COVID-19 symptoms or is a lab confirmed positive with COVID-19. Any staff member or student exhibiting COVID-19 symptoms while at school will be handled in accordance with our Devine ISD COVID-19 mitigation plan, which is currently in development. TEA is requiring that each district post a summary of the plan that they will follow to mitigate COVID-19 spread in their schools for our parents and general public 1 week prior to the start of on-campus activities and instruction. Again, per the Texas Education Agency and CDC, individuals are expected to quarantine and therefore will not be allowed to be on campus for a specified time period if they exhibit COVID-19 symptoms such as cough, runny nose, shortness of breath or difficulty breathing, nausea or vomiting, feeling feverish or a measured temperature greater or equal to 100.4 degrees, loss of taste or smell, headache, sore throat, shaking or exaggerated shivering, significant muscle ache or pain, or diarrhea, or a test positive for COVID-19, or a close contact to someone who has tested positive for COVID-19. We go over these symptoms daily. It's a ritual that we kind of joke. We stop and try to quiz each other to see who can get them all out the fastest. Any student who is quarantined will be transitioned to a remote learning until they are meeting qualified protocol to return to school. Face masks or coverings, as mandated by Governor Abbott, list face masks must be worn at school by students 10 years of age or older. In order to follow this directive and to remain consistent across all of our campuses, Devine ISD is planning at this point to require all students, faculty, and staff to wear face coverings at school, and will require face shields in some cases for our very young students or other specific circumstances. Obviously, lunch and physical education protocols will vary based on each campus, and these are obvious times when a face covering will not be practical. We feel that requiring the use of face coverings is an important step to take, ensuring that no child becomes a close contact to someone at school who may be subsequently testing positive for COVID-19. For clarity, close contact is defined as being directly exposed to infectious secretions, i.e., being coughed on while not wearing a mask or a face shield, or being within 6 feet of an infected person for a cumulative duration of 15 minutes while not wearing a mask or a face shield. As the information from CDC that we've collected, close contact is considered to have occurred if an individual is around someone, as we explained above, in 2 days prior to the onset of COVID symptoms, or in the case of someone who is asymptomatic in the 2 days prior to a positive test. All right, so now we're moving to option 2, remote learning. Students will remotely complete a rigorous curriculum provided by your child's teachers on a daily basis. Attendance will be taken for each class or subject, and daily participation will be required. Numeric grades will be calculated for remote learning in the same manner that grades are calculated for in-person learners. Devine ISD will communicate dates and times of remote learning information sessions that we will conduct so that parents will be familiar with the expectations of the students and the parents. This would include details regarding student, parent, and teacher responsibilities. These programs that students will likely use to complete their remote learning, procedures for taking daily attendance, and additional information that will be covered in these sessions would include particulars for each campus. A parent of any student whose child will participate in distance learning will be required to attend at least one session. Students who start the school year with remote instruction as their option may change to in-person instruction or vice versa, but that change can only take place at the end of a 6 weeks grading period. So another area of school operations. This is the classroom and common areas. Students are going to be encouraged to wash their hands with soap and water as frequently as possible throughout the day. And additionally, classroom, as we mentioned before, will have sanitizer available at the entrance. We will space students as far out as possible in classrooms, given the size of the classroom, and they will be expected to wear masks or, like we mentioned, in some cases, face shields. Appropriate safety protocols will be utilized for hands-on coursework and small lab groups. And we are going to post signage in each hallway and entrances of the doors for reminders of the procedures. In addition to hand washing sinks in our restrooms, hand sanitizer will be provided throughout the hallways and at entry points of the building. All restrooms and frequently touched surfaces in the school will be sanitized regularly during the school day, as will the classrooms and our playground equipment. Another aspect, transportation. Bus transportation will be provided to those students that qualify for transportation. And because of the need to space our students apart on buses, parents must register your students for bus service so we know who we will be accounting for. Students will be required to wear their masks on the bus and apply hand sanitizer to their hands when entering and exiting the bus. We'll also have our buses sanitized after each route. And every effort will be made to limiting our students to one seat. However, this may become a situation that we may have to sit 2 persons per seat on routes with more students. And our morning routes will normally have our students load from the back to the front of the bus, vice versa. For our car pickup and drop off, parents will have to remain in their cars. We're having to limit this walk-up, pick-up type situation to only cars just because of the interaction and congregation of parents and students at our drop-off and pick-up points. Our cafeteria situation. We will be arranging seating in our cafeterias to allow appropriate student spacing. Dividers and other separational equipment may be used in order to meet our seating capacity of each campus. Additional lunch periods may be added as they become a need for us. Students will use hand sanitizer when entering and exiting the cafeteria, and they will wear their face masks except when they are eating. Lunch periods will be closed to visitors due to limited seating and the safety concerns. And as with every aspect of school operation during this pandemic, transportation and food service operations could change at any time due to the changes in our COVID environment. These changes will be relayed to you as soon as possible, as soon as we are able to put them in an expeditable form. As far as UIL and extracurricular activities are concerned, Both remote learners and in-person learners will be eligible to participate in UIL-sponsored activities. We received guidance last week from UIL on different participation and situational constraints that we have. So as we adjust our athletic schedules, our sports schedules, we will get that information out to you as far as our fall sports go. Workouts will continue for the remainder of the summer, and adjusted schedules for these workouts may become necessary, and they will be released as needed. The current safety protocols, which I think are amazing, our coaches are doing a great job, and our band director is doing an amazing job. These will remain in place and continuously revised to make sure we stay in compliance with CDC guidelines. We check them once a day to make sure that we're still following what's best for our students. As far as the start of school, all of our campuses are currently scheduled to open for both remote and in-person instruction on August 24th. If any of this changes, the information will be sent to you as soon as possible. There is a possibility that our district may have to switch to remote instruction only at some point during the 2021 school year. This could occur if the governor or other authorized official was to order full school shutdown or closure. Trust that our staff and our personnel are completely prepared if any of this was to happen, and we will be able to support all students at home in a completely remote scenario. Registration. Registration will be held the first week of August. This process is planned to be conducted electronically, and the district is still fine-tuning this process. It's the first year that we've undertaken this. Ms. Schneider's doing an amazing job, but as any process, there are hiccups in the road, and we're getting guidance daily from the people who are in charge of our platform. We seem to be one of the pioneering districts of our size. So they're excited to help us, and I think we're having great results. Detailed information will be communicated to you in the next week. You will soon be asked to select your learning mode preference for the coming year during registration, and might be before we actually have registration, just because a couple of the campuses, it's very crucial for them to know the exact amount of students to expect for in-person instruction. They're planning, a lot of it is on hold, and we're trying to accommodate them as fast as we can. After a full grading period, you would be able to change your learning platform preference. The Devine ISD instructional staff firmly believes in the value of returning to school in person. We also recognize the social and emotional benefits for students in attending school. However, we do recognize that a variety of factors make it essential that parents and students have the ability to choose the option that you feel is optimal for your student to get the safest education possible. As we navigate these unprecedented challenges, we value and appreciate the support of you, the community, and our parents and guardians. The majority of our decisions that need to be made during this time revolve around direction and guidelines from the government agencies and our health officials outside the district. However, it is our responsibility to follow these completely in order to comply with federal and state laws that are overarching for our district. Further challenges that await us may require that additional guidelines be adopted, and we're grateful for you and your flexibility as we strive to accommodate these for the district. Whenever you have specific campus-driven questions, please contact your campus principal to discuss any specific concerns that you may have for your children. Now we will go ahead and start the question and answer portion. I have a group of central office staff appropriately socially distanced in the office helping me out with these. We're going to try to answer as many questions as possible, but in the interest of time and respecting your schedule, we have limited this entire session to 1 hour. as all submitted questions will be answered and posted on the Q&A section as soon as we have them answered. Please rest assured if your question doesn't get answered at this time that we're not ignoring you. All right, I'm going to switch over. All right, this first group of questions involves on-campus learning questions. So the first one says, will my child be screened before coming on campus? If so, how? Will there be a limited number of entry points on the campus? How will this was a multi-part question. I'm going to start going through some of the other ones because they actually break down a lot of this information. This came in all as one. So first one is, will on-campus learners have to wear a mask? Will they be required to wear a mask? Yes. Anyone entering a school building will be required to wear a mask. As you know, on July 2nd, Governor Abbott mandated that everyone over 10 years of age must wear a mask in Texas counties that have over 20 active cases. Medina County continues to have over 20 active cases, so students and staff will be required to wear masks. The district is also making a local decision to require students 10 and younger to wear masks. We're doing this because a mask prevents many cases of close contact, as we've been educated through the CDC. As we will probably explain later in this FAQ, when close contact is carefully avoided, fewer instances of quarantine will occur. We will be providing a limited quantity of disposable masks, so students are continued to wear their own masks. Guidance on regarding what mask is allowable will soon be available. We actually know that now. So what we're identifying as the district guidelines on a mask is any solid color mask with no writing or symbols, or a Devine ISD specific mask that you'd consider like a spirit mask. The Devine type spirit mask may be multicolored as long as they are a combination of any of these colors: maroon, gold, white, black, or gray. Can a neck gaiter be worn instead of a mask? Actually received guidance on that from our county health director today. Said yes, that should be considered fine. That will follow the same guidelines as what we've listed for the face masks. But what is important is that it can be doubled over or overlapped to be considered two-ply. Second question, will my child have to wear a face shield? This is possible depending on their age. What we've received from the CDC is that the shield does not take the place of a face mask. Students can wear a face mask, or students could wear a face mask and a shield. But whenever we're starting to consider face masks versus face shields, it's going to be for the younger grades, likely pre-K, kindergarten. We haven't determined the exact grade range for that yet, but as we all know, a face mask can get to be a situation in many avenues for a pre-K or a kindergarten student. What we received from our expert was CDC listing, and it actually says, it is not known if face shields provide any benefit as source control to protect others from spray of respiratory particles. CDC does not recommend the use of face shields for normal everyday activities or as a substitute for a cloth face covering. Some people may choose to use a face shield when sustained close contact with other people is expected. It said, in the event face shields are used without a mask, they should wrap around the sides of the wearer's face and extend to below the chin. Disposable face shields should only be worn for single use. Reusable shields should be cleaned and disinfected after each use, and plastic face shields for newborns and infants are not recommended. We'll have a little bit better guidance on that, but right now, as our plan goes, no teachers or students that are for certain above third grade and above will be wearing a face shield in place of a face covering. It said, will students be provided with personal protective equipment? Like I said before, we have received personal protective equipment from TEA, but not nearly the amount that we need for this school and the school year. we don't even know if we're going to be able to purchase the amounts that we're needing because of the demand. So right now we're asking students to bring their own. And like we said above, please follow the guidance that we're listing for the face coverings. This one says, are there rules on the style or color of face mask or gaiters? And we covered that just a few minutes ago. Will my student be asked to participate in cleaning and sanitation efforts? So there will be deep cleaning each afternoon after the students and staff leave for the day. And it's actually going to take a group effort to maintain this throughout the day. TEA is requiring lessons on hygiene on the first day of school, and some sort of wipe down is going to be necessary between periods and activities. You know, at some levels, students are likely to be cleaning their own spaces, and this will be supplies and stuff that the district provides. But if there is an issue that affects a child's health or their well-being or a medical concern, you know, that definitely needs to be addressed with us. Will there be plexiglass dividers? This is yes and maybe, depending on the scenario or the location. Where social distancing isn't possible for an extended period of time, we may use some sort of shield. That's being considered in several different arenas right now, but masks will still always be required. So how many students will be in a classroom? This is dependent on the physical size of the classroom and the ability to be able to socially distance within that space. You know, depending on average size of classrooms, that will be the determining factor on how many we'll be able to accommodate in each classroom. Is Devine ISD, if a Devine ISD employee or student is positive, will we close the entire school district and transition to online learning? That's a no. So if there is a close positive, we will begin the contact tracing protocols. The positive case will be quarantined for 10 days from the onset of symptoms and or the positive test, and must remain symptom-free for 24 hours before return. Any close contacts will be quarantined for 14 days from the date of symptoms of the positive person. Everybody who is quarantined will begin immediate remote learning, but students who are learning in person and teachers who have not been in close contact will continue to report to campus. If there is an outbreak, which an outbreak is deemed by local health officials at a particular campus or a particular area, the campus can be shut down for 5 days at a maximum for cleaning processes. In that case, learning will continue remotely. According to TEA, long-term closure beyond 5 days will result in either having to make time up or addressing other issues. Will I be notified if a student or staff member tests positive? Yes. We are required to let parents know when we have a positive test. And due to privacy laws, public schools are not able to disclose the name of any individual teacher or student in this situation. However, we're going to report these cases in general, and families will be specifically notified if, through our tracking processes, it is confirmed that their student has been directly exposed to a positive case. In the case of a close contact, will my student have to quarantine if he or she has previously tested positive? So this is new guidance released by the CDC. It says, as newest information from CDC, a person is not considered to be a close contact if they have had COVID within 3 months of the other person's initial symptoms. After the 3-month timeline, a person would again have to consider close contact and would have to consider quarantine for 14 days. This information is very new, and so we're also trying to figure out in some of our questioning and our enrollment forms how to identify any students that have had COVID and the date that the contraction took place, so that this will help us in our tracing and in our identifying quarantine protocol. If a student in my class What if a student in my child's class tests positive? I think we covered that. Basically, we'll begin tracing protocols to determine any close contacts, and the quarantine procedures will take place. Like I said, as previously stated, if your student tests positive within the last 3 months and has recovered, your student will not have to be quarantined. This applies for staff as well. Who is deemed to be a close contact per CDC and TEA? All of three of the following has to occur for an encountered person to be confirmed as a close contact. So the contact person has to be within 6 feet for a period of more than 15 minutes without a mask. Again, it's imperative. We can't stress enough why it is so important that we continuously make sure that we have our masks on all the time. Many of the quarantines can be avoided if we have a mask. What if my student tests positive but has no symptoms? A positive test for asymptomatic case requires 10 days of quarantine from the date of the test. An asymptomatic student who tests positive will be moved to distance learning during their quarantine period, and all instruction and assignments will need to be completed on a daily basis until the student is able to return to in-person learning. According to current CDC guidelines, a student who tests positive will not have to be quarantined again for 3 months. Will the school district pay for testing if my child has been exposed at school? That is no. Similar to strep throat, flu, or any other viral situation or testing, COVID-19 testing is administered by health professionals outside of the school setting. Will the school limit volunteers, visitors, and guests on campus to reduce possible exposure? Absolutely yes. Per Texas Education Agency guidance, we are expected to limit our visitors at all of our campuses to reduce exposure. Appointments will be needed in case anyone needs to come to campus to conduct business. Will Devine ISD require that any student be tested for COVID-19? We will not require any student to be tested at this time. In the absence of a positive test result, any student who has symptoms or was in close contact with a person who did test positive for COVID-19 will be required to quarantine for a minimum of 14 days, even if they display no symptoms. A negative test result is not required to return to on-campus learning. Because a negative test result at any time during this 14-day quarantine doesn't mean that you're out of the woods yet. Are there benefits to obtaining a positive test result if my student contracts the virus? There is a benefit to testing. There is a benefit to testing in that a positive test result can shorten a student's quarantine time to 10 days from the date of the test of the positive result if they can remain symptom-free for at least 24 hours. Based on recent CDC guidance, another benefit to obtaining a positive test result is that individuals will not have to be quarantined for 3 months after testing positive, regardless of possible exposure. It is important to note that because the virus is capable of a 14-day gestation period, a negative test result will not shorten a student's 14-day quarantine period. That's what I was saying earlier, but it just put it in a lot better wording, obviously. Is it possible to be quarantined more than once? Yes. If a student has not contracted the virus and is found to be a close contact, they could be quarantined more than one time. Do I or my student have to report close contact outside of the school setting? Yes. Any deemed close contact must immediately be reported to your student's campus. What if I or my student is hospitalized due to COVID? It is our sincerest hope that this does not happen to any of our students or parents. However, if this were to be the case, please have someone contact your school's campus as soon as possible. If my student's symptoms may be due to allergies, can they still come to school? We're saying no, because below is a list of the symptoms due to CDC, and these symptoms must be reported to your campus. This could alert you as a positive in terms of symptoms to where you would need to quarantine. And the symptoms, again, that we need to watch for: fever or chills, cough, shortness of breath or difficulty breathing, fatigue, muscle or body aches, headache, a new loss of taste or smell, sore throat, congestion or runny nose, nausea or vomiting, or diarrhea. Obviously, this list gets updated frequently, and so we'll keep adding to it as we get new information. Will my student's temperature be taken every day upon arrival at school? That's no. We've purchased several thermometers. However, we will not be taking temperatures each morning at this time. We're actually in the development process of an attestation for each child in regards to the symptoms and the notification of administrators by parents or guardians of possible concerns. This one says, what is symptom screening and does CDC recommend it for students and staff? Based on the available evidence that CDC provides for us, they do not recommend universal widespread symptom screening by schools. Instead, they say parents or caregivers should be strongly encouraged to monitor their children for signs of infectious illness, and students who are sick just shouldn't come to school. Why does a confirmed positive person only have to be out 10 days from symptoms and or tests, while a person who has been in close contact has to be out for 14 days of the close contact? And this is because the possible gestation period of the virus is 14 days as guidance from the CDC. Let's see. How specifically will the safety of in-person learners be prioritized? What routines and procedures specifically will be followed? This is being currently identified in our on-campus learning plan, and the specifics involved would take up the remainder of the time of this for certain. So we're going to release those as soon as we have it available. Please refer to that information. Will the bus pick up and drop off my child, and how many kids will be on the bus? Will there be social distancing? Kind of covered that earlier. We definitely will be offering bus service. The number of students on the bus will be determined basically by the route congestion. Every student has to wear a mask, required to wear a mask. They're going to sanitize their hands entering and leaving the bus. Transportation is going to be one of those areas, just like food service, that is going to be very fluid and dynamic in terms of how things change throughout this whole process. How will students social distance in restrooms and while using lockers? Currently, the campuses are working on their plans for restrooms. Some things that we're looking at are only having a grade level use of one bathroom. And in terms of lockers, you're going to have to use the mask. I know I talked to Mr. Bird today. We've got a questioning process that will go out to the students in terms of who's going to utilize the locker. We're going to probably try to stagger those so we can keep some distance in between the lockers that are used. How will lunch periods work for students at different campuses? Right now, we know several procedures for a couple of the campuses. Like the elementary, Miss Brenda said, each grade level lunch, half of the class was going to be outside playing, half of them will be eating. So the one half will eat first. This should minimize both the number of students on the playground and in the cafeteria at one time. They're going to separate 3- and 4-year-olds in the cafeteria. Got a long list of things that will go into her campus learning program. Intermediate, middle, and high school all have similar protocols. As you get to different ages of different students, it's going to look different on the different campuses, obviously. Can in-person instruction occur outside? Yes, this is going to be at the discretion of the campus principal and the teacher, as long as it's in a safe area and weather permitting. So now I'm going to try to switch to some of the remote learning questions. So it says, how will my student be graded? Remote grading guidelines will mirror the expectations of in-class learners. How can my student get one-on-one help from his teachers? Our teachers are going to have posted office hours, and we're going to try to integrate some creative practices as far as tutorials go. What if I'm not comfortable sending my student to school, but I cannot supply him or her with technological equipment and or Wi-Fi access that is needed to learn remotely? Just like in the spring, we're going to have devices available. We've secured a program with TEA to purchase 1,038 Chromebooks at a dollar-for-dollar match from the state. These are not going to be here immediately at the start of school. As you can expect, there's a huge backlog from everybody in the world trying to get remote devices for their children to be able to be at school. But we're thinking sometime mid-September. We have enough to accommodate a big hit of people that are going to be in need of these. And as the new devices come in, we're going to get them out as quickly as possible. Our ultimate goal for the district prior to COVID was to be a one-on-one district to where, at least from the middle school grades up, students had a personal device that they were able to take home with them each day. Let's see. So this is a good one. How will remote learning be different in 2021 compared to what was offered at the spring of 2020? This is going to be a total revamp and overhaul of that process because we were only able to basically put in integration reviewed work. So there's going to be a lot more teacher-student interaction through Google Classroom. It's going to be a daily interaction between teachers and students in a live perspective, especially at the upper grades. We're not able to or allowed to give live interactive required lessons at grades pre-K through second, but we're still going to have live interactive pieces that the teachers are going to be involved in, so a student at that age could still interact with their teacher. The upper grades, high school, you're probably going to see this scenario where the student gets a schedule just like they would receive if they were going to be in person, and they will log on to their 8 o'clock biology class, their 10 o'clock world history class, so on and so forth. Students that aren't able to participate in that manner are going to be required at some time to log on, view those lessons, and still submit the same classwork that the students are doing that are interacting live with their teachers. If I choose remote learning for my child, do they have to do their work during the school day, or can they complete the assignments in the evening when parents can help? If you're remote learning for your child, they will be able to complete the assignments anytime during the day. That'll be explained a little bit better in the on-campus, each individual learning plan. If my child is participating in remote learning, how will attendance be taken? Does he or she have to be logged in at a certain time during the day? So there's 3 things that must occur. One of these 3 things must occur for your child to be considered present for the day. Daily progress is made through their remote learning system. An assignment is submitted through the remote learning system for that day, or daily progress via teacher-student interaction, so live attendance will be taken for those students that are logged in. So I'm trying to get through some general questions. So this one on the spot. So why isn't Devine taking advantage of the remote transition back to school period that is offered by TEA? So although the state allows for a transition period of remote learning, According to recent DISD return to school parent survey, about half of our parents responded that they indicated they would prefer to send their students to on-campus for instruction, in-person learning, and we have a responsibility to meet that. No local health agencies have prohibited us from returning to schools in Medina County, and per TEA guidance is the goal of Texas Public Schools to reopen in the fall with both on-site and remote learning options for students. So we're going to do the best to keep our students safe and provide them as many options for learning in terms of what fits the family's situation the best. Will my students still be responsible for their coursework if they are ill with COVID-19? If your student is home ill, he or she will be moved to online learning if they were not already learning remotely. As with any illness, the student may complete the work from home if he or she is available. However, the campus policy for submitting work after an illness will be followed. Campus policies allow for flexibility in the case of student illnesses, obviously. And whether your student is learning in person or remotely, it is very important that you contact the campus immediately if he or she is unable to participate due to any illnesses. Why can't we push back the start of school? Any delay in the first day of school will require an adjustment to our academic calendar, and unlike last school year, these days will need to be made up. TEA, through their ultimate wisdom, at some point came up with 76,500 minutes instead of school days, so we're required to meet that obligation. And TEA is still holding us accountable to the minimum number of minutes as required. No matter when we start, we still have to finish under that umbrella. Will the remote instruction curriculum be the same as in-person curriculum and electives also? Yes, this is what the teachers will be working on every single day. That's a requirement of TEA, that no matter what your learning platform is, it's an equitable process and everybody's getting the same information, doing the same lessons. What about my students' mental health? Will there be additional counselors available? The school district is currently working to find a district counselor that is going to be a mental health focused counselor, and he or she will be able to help at all levels. Our current counselors will work endlessly to make sure they meet the needs of our remote and our in-person students. Will the school go above and beyond recommendations by TEA and CDC to ensure the safety of our students? We absolutely will. I think that's evident in some of the things that we're putting into place. It'll become very evident once you see our individual campus learning plans. Can I still walk up and pick up my child? That's a no. Parents will be required to stay in their vehicles when dropping off and picking up their children. Like we mentioned before, this is to eliminate congregation of parents or students in a way that just becomes more difficult for us to control. And its safety is paramount. Will the district provide COVID data daily or weekly? So we're required to notify the families of on-campus illnesses if there is a positive case. And we're going to do all we can to try to protect the privacy of those that are directly effective. At every school board meeting during the superintendent's update, that information will be provided. So anytime you're interested in that, you could access school board minutes or anything off of the website or come to a meeting. Do I still have to tell the district if my child tests positive or is deemed a close contact outside of the school setting? Yes. And this is just for the health and safety of all of our students and staff. We're asking that any close contacts and positive test results be reported to the district. Will there be a Meet the Teacher night? We're planning those as we speak. As it looks right now, this is going to be only virtual. Some of the ideas that our principals have come up with are quite creative, and I think even though it is unfortunate that we're not going to be able to be on campus, your child still going to enjoy it, and they're going to get a lot out of the virtual format that the teachers are going to be able to put together. Will library books still be checked out? Yes, and whenever they're returned, they're going to sit in quarantine for 48 hours. Will laptops, Chromebooks be available for checkout? Yes, mentioned that before. It's imperative that if this is a requirement of your family or someone you know that obviously may not have access to this interaction because they don't have a device at home, have them contact the campus principal or have them contact central office. The sooner we know about this, the sooner we're going to be able to help. Will hotspots be available for checkout? Yes, and the same thing applies. If you know somebody that needs this and doesn't have access to the information that we're putting out right now, have them contact somebody at the school. Will I still be able to pick up meals from food service if my child or I choose online learning? Yes, you'll still be available to utilize a food service. That process is still being determined and defined because we use a contracted service company, and we work with them every day to try to figure out what's going to suit us the best. They're being extremely helpful and open to meet our needs, and we appreciate them. Will the bus pick up my child? Yes. Will there be any packets mailed out? That is no. TEA specifically has outlawed the use of packets during this time, so everything will be virtual through a device if you choose a remote learning option. Will my child's teacher be available in the evening for help with instruction or questions? Unfortunately not. Our teacher will be teaching a regular schedule during the school day. They will have office hours and a conference period, just like if COVID had never hit us, during the scheduled day, where correspondence will be available for them through email, phone call, or Google Meet, and they will answer your question as soon as they can. Will I be coming to campus for ARD meetings or parent conferences? That is no, as of right now. So as we start the school year, every meeting that we have will be virtual or over the phone, and that is to accommodate TEA guidance on visitors on campus. Will school supplies be shared in the classroom? And basically we're going on CDC's guidance according to shared objects. CDC discourages the sharing of items that are difficult to clean or disinfect. They tell us to keep each child's belongings separated from others' child's and in individually labeled containers or cubbies. We're to ensure adequate supplies to minimize sharing of high-touch materials to the extent possible. For example, assigning each student their own art supplies or equipment, or limit the use of supplies and equipment by one group of children at a time, and clean and disinfect between use. They also recommend avoiding sharing of electronic devices, toys, books, or other games and learning aids. Will the dress code be relaxed for in-person instruction? Some of you may be aware that we had a school board meeting. Standardized dress protocols will still be in place, but spirit shirts are being added as an appropriate item to our list of standardized dress. Spirit shirts are going to be anything that is maroon, gold, black, white, or gray, and displays some sort of Devine ISD support. As you'll notice, these colors go back to the Devine ISD face covering. That could be the only multicolored face covering that we have. We are designing and writing a little bit more specific information as far as the spirit shirts go. We'll have that out as soon as we can, but just to be overarching and answer the question, that is the direction that we're going. Fridays will still be an optional day for the campus principal to implement specific days or holidays or whatever may come about. And there has been mention that Friday may be a spirit day in terms of a face covering to wear your favorite college team or favorite team could be an option. Will I be able to eat lunch with my child? And that is, as of right now, no, for the safety and well-being of our students and staff. We're not going to accommodate any guardians or parents eating with their children at this time. Will I be able to volunteer in my child's class? And same thing. For safety reasons right now, we're going to say no. As the situation changes and our environment becomes a little bit different, each one of these things will be addressed. Can I choose a combination of at-home and in-school instruction? And that is no. That follows a little bit of what TEA has put into place for us, but you're either going to be remote or in school. That's the decision that has to be made. And like we said, these choices could be changed at the end of the grading period. Will there be recess? Yes. And like we said before, as we continue to receive guidance, if playground equipment is able to be used, it will be sanitized each day. And basically the CDC says close communal use of shared spaces such as dining halls and playgrounds with shared equipment must be staggered in use and clean and disinfected between each use. Will there be social distancing during recess? If so, how? We're going to be working on schedules and routines that will be teaching the children how to maintain safe distances from each other. And our students are going to sanitize their hands at the beginning and the end of recess. These routines and these lessons are one of the requirements of TEA. They require first day. This will be a continuous process for us. Will there be academic UIL? We're preparing for this. We have our districts established. We make contact with the people that are in our district, but we're still waiting guidance from UIL on how the contests will be organized, just as in athletics. And will grades be taken? Yes. The grading policy that was used pre-COVID situation will be back into effect. Will my child receive special education services? And that is a yes without falter. I can tell you right now, Mrs. Dykstra and her staff have policies in place to meet the needs and accommodations of every student, whether you're in remote or in-person instruction. Will there be tutorials or tutoring? Absolutely yes. And whether or not your student is in person or in remote learning platform, each campus will have tutoring procedures that are designed to best fit their students and their student groups. Can I deliver food to my child every day? That's going to be a no. Based on guidance from TEA and CDC, they don't recommend it, so that's the direction that we're going. Will homebound services still be provided? Yes. Homebound students will be using the same remote learning platform as our remote learning students. Okay. If it's safe to reopen schools, why are we holding virtual meetings and not in-person meetings? And we are actually holding in-person meetings. Our school board meetings are in person. But all these meetings are going to be using the guidelines identified by the CDC. Like I said earlier, based on our survey to parents, we have over 50% of our families in our district that choose in-person instruction with safety protocols in place. And it's our responsibility and duty to provide this. The reason we are holding this virtual meeting is to accommodate those families that may not feel comfortable in a meeting that would take place in person. And we can reach a whole gamut of viewers that, based on our social distancing and spacing, that we wouldn't be able to accommodate otherwise. We'd probably have to be on the football field. Does it say how many attendees do we have, Mr. Daniel? How many people do we have in the meeting right now?
189.
Okay. Definitely wouldn't get 189 people in the DSEC following the guidelines that we use whenever we hold in-person meetings. Why don't you just do distance learning for the first few weeks like every other school around us is doing? On the Devine ISD return to school survey, like I mentioned, 50% of our parents indicated that they wanted to be in an in-person learning scenario for their students. Our local health authorities have not mandated that Medina County schools go fully virtual, and it is also the goal of TEA for parents who want their students to be at school, be in school, and have the in-person option to the greatest extent that we can offer. We're at about a minute left. If we haven't addressed your question, we're coming with it. We're gonna finish these up within the next day, post them on the Q&A. And so, high school lunch. Let's see. Is that one on there? We had a couple of questions about high school lunch. We're going to get those finished. We'll answer those. We'll put those on the Q&A. And as you also know, Governor has mentioned a suspension in the requirement for 5th and 8th graders to pass STAR to be promoted to the next grade. That was all over the news yesterday. We're not quite sure what the other mandates or the other pieces of STAR are going to entail at this time. To the best of our knowledge, we know that we're going to have to administer, but we don't know if that's going to incorporate ratings for our district. Those things are going to be worked out and put in probably a whole nother informational document, because it's going to be important that we be able to access those quickly, different than just a Q&A for our teachers. So, like I said, I want to thank you again for taking time to attend our informational session. And as we navigate these unprecedented challenges, we value and appreciate the support of everybody in the community. There are going to be bigger challenges that await us, and they're going to require additional guidelines that we have to adopt. And we're extremely grateful in your flexibility as we strive to get through these times. Please contact your campus principal to address any specific concerns that you may have for your child. Like I said before, we strive to make the most informed decisions that we possibly can. We appreciate the opportunity to educate your children, and I appreciate the opportunity to be in this wonderful community. Like we mentioned, if you have any concerns that may be overarching of the campus principals, submit them through these emails. We're going to be watching this even after school starts. Our technology director is phenomenal. He set this up. We've got alerts. Everybody in central office gets pings, not only for our text messages, but now we have 2 more email avenues that ping our phones. So we know you're out there, we're listening, and we're trying to address every concern that you have. So have a good night, and we look forward to the start of school.